Welcome to another Demarcation Media Blokees review. Today we have the Champion Class, Empire Strikes Back Darth Vader, and Stormtrooper. Champion Class is also known as Classic Class, but that's mostly the Transformers stuff. That's the Classic Class name. Now the big thing that I want to point out while we got the boxes here are the size counters on the box. Vader counts as a medium figure, and the Stormtrooper counts as a small. So my guess is that if we ever get, say, a Chewbacca would scale as a large. So I'm very curious to see how that'll pan out, and we'll get these guys together, obviously, and get some size comparisons. The box art looks fantastic, very minimalistic, but pretty much everything that you would want from something like this. And it's very clear from the packaging that this is a model kit and not like just a straight up pre-assembled action figure. I feel like now that we're venturing into the realm of Star Wars, it would be pretty easy to get confused, but Blokees has done a good job here and everything is pretty clear. There will have been a live build of these guys, so if you want to go and see that, I will have a link up in the corner and in the pinned comment. These were provided by Blokees, but that does not affect anything that I say because you cannot buy good reviews on this channel. So there are both the figures put together. And before we jump into size comparisons, I wanted to show off a few of the extra bits, starting with the stand. The stand is the same for both figures. You get a little printed Star Wars plaque. The center can rotate for some reason, but I don't know, that's pretty cool. There's a little peg for a flight stand, I guess in case they want to add one in the future. Now the weird thing about this stand is you can't actually use it unless you build an alternate version of the foot. Each one of the figures comes with an alternate foot sole that has a peg to allow you to stick it on there. I don't love that. That means you have to be constantly taking apart and reassembling the figure. Because if you want them on the stand, you got to have the peg, but if you want them just standing on the ground, this is not going to work. So that's a little bit of a weird choice. Also, each figure comes with an alternate, or not really alternate, I should say extra wrist joint, which is nice. Size comparisons. So I'm going to start with Vader, and I want to actually drop in another Blokees Classic Class or Champion Class figure because the Superman right here also counts as a medium, and they are basically the same height. So Blokees has been proven consistent there. And then obviously I need to drop in the Black Series Vader. This is the New Hope Vader, and you can see the Blokees one is definitely shorter. And there's definitely a lot more that we could go into in terms of comparison here. Granted, this is the New Hope Vader and this is the Empire Strikes Back Vader. So the helmets are going to be a little bit different. The big thing that the New Hope version here wins over the Blokees one is the cloth cape. We'll talk more about the hard cape here later, but I will say the Black Series soft goods, that's pretty nice. The sculpt though, overall, I feel like the Blokees one is sharper in a lot of the small details. Black Series tends to use softer plastic, which means softer, mushier details. So I don't know. I don't know which one I prefer yet, but there's big differences there for sure. Here is a Galaxy version Stormtrooper, very short. Here is a Classic Class Transformers figure that is customized, but the height's the same. And then just for kicks, we have the 1000 Toys Master Chief, which that size looks pretty close to accurate. And here's the Stormtrooper. Once again, we've got the Galaxy version figure, much shorter. We'll grab the Black Series Vader. So, I mean, if you want Vader to look absolutely freaking massive, then these Stormtroopers pair well, but otherwise, they're going to look a little off. And then we've got a medium-sized figure, if he will stand up, please. Thank you. He is half a head to a head taller. That's pretty cool, which that is how these figures are together. Vader is definitely taller. I really like that fine-tuned accuracy there. And then here's Master Chief. Once again, absolutely massive. Also, I realized I just dropped that Stormtrooper there. But I kind of want to get a little bit more into almost a comparison with the Black Series Stormtroopers because I've had some arguments online about this. I don't have a just plain trooper, but I do have this incinerator trooper that uses the, as of the time of the recording of this video, current Stormtrooper design. And in my opinion, this is a very mushy figure. What I mean by mushy is the details in general are kind of soft and indistinct in a lot of places, especially the helmet. I think the helmet's pretty bad. It's very wide. Like I said, the details are soft. It also tends to just be bent out of shape, especially when you get it right out of the package. It's just not great. Whereas the Blokees one, and now we're kind of getting a little bit into the details here, but the Blokees helmet is very sharp, and that's one of the pluses of a model kit, is that the pieces will just be more sharp if it's a good model kit. And especially, like, I don't know, I'm looking at it, and on the COD piece, it's very soft on the Black Series figure. On the Blokees one, it's a lot more crisp. Also, the Black Series figures, they have very soft ratchet joints, and like this dude is very loose in a lot of places, and I don't like it. Also, the shoulders are not on any sort of a hinge. They're on a soft plastic tab. So basically you just have to bend it out of the way when you want the arm to go up, and that results in it staying up like this. Whereas the Blokees one is actually on a hinge, and that allows you to move it up and down at will. The Blokees one also has a bit more articulation. This guy has good articulation for the most part, but between the loose joints and the few spots that Blokees does better, I just like the Blokees one better. Now, I do have the original Sand Trooper. This is an old figure. I don't know, he's like 10 years old or something at this point. Can I get them to stand up? Oh my gosh, why is Black Series so hard to get them to stand up? These stupid ratchet joints. There we go. I have this dude, and this dude I think is way better than the current one. The details in general are a bit sharper. I think the helmet looks better. Also, he's weathered, so there's just that. And he also has more articulation overall. Granted, he is a Sand Trooper, so he's got like pouches on the side, and he's missing the like tabs here on the front, which, by the way, these are just soft, so the more you bend them, the more they're gonna get closer to breaking. The Blokees one, it's on a hinge, so that's brilliant. I love that. But yeah, this guy has double joints for all the major joints, so the knee and the arms and whatnot. And I think when you compare this guy to this guy, I do think that the Black Series one is pretty darn good, this version. The current one is poodoo though. I don't like that one at all. I just think it's a very cheap downgrade overall. Now, keep in mind, this dude is supposed to be specifically Empire Strikes Back. I guess it also means A New Hope. This one is more A New Hope. This one's a Mandalorian, but Blokees is using this helmet for all of them. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I like this guy better in terms of looks. He's just sharper everywhere except for the knees. The Black Series figures have very nice knees, especially this dude. This guy, okay, it's fine. Like, it's nothing really wrong with it. But the Blokees one, they just put the joint there. I don't think that looks very good. That's very odd, and especially when you have it like this, it just doesn't look like a human leg, and I really think that they could have done something a little better there. That's my one point where I think that Blokees failed, and I think that they can do better, but yeah, that's just not great. So popping back over to Vader, we have, for accessories, two very angry force push, force pull, maybe choking hands. We have two more standard action figure open hands. We have a pointing, go kill that guy hand. That's nice. We have the proper choking hand. I'm really pleased and surprised that they included this, but it's here. He's got a proper force choke. He's got a pair of fists. And then we have the lightsaber. So the lightsaber is actually molded into the hand. The fist and the lower section of the lightsaber are one piece, and then you pop the upper part of the lightsaber and then the blade on. I am fine with this, but the way that they did this, and I understand why they did it, they made the hilt rather large, and as a result, the fist is rather large, and it just ends up looking a bit odd when compared with the other hands. I don't really like that, but I understand why they did it, because if you make the fist smaller, you got to make the lightsaber smaller. And if you make the lightsaber smaller, that means the blade gets thinner, which means there's a higher chance of breaking it. So like the Black Series blade ends are very thin, but Blokees gave you two blades here, so you're going to be swapping them a lot. And this one is a swinging blade. This is sick. It's also a very big, solid piece of material. But yeah, that's very dynamic. adds a ton of value. I think it's great. What I don't think is great is the lack of silver print on the lightsaber hilt. I think it really needed some of that silver print to make it truly finished. Obviously, you can paint some of that on yourself if you want, but I think Blokees should have just done that by default. All right, I'll talk about the cape. The cape is bad. It's not bad in the look. It's a very dynamic looking piece. The wrinkles in it are great. The wrinkles in the waist cape are great. This is a bit soft, so it can bend a little. It looks really good. And when he's standing there, it's flowing in a very Vader-like way. But it's so heavy. And you can't change the pose at all. You can't have it flowing out behind him that much. You can't have it flowing out to the side. It just kind of sits. And it makes it really hard to pose him because, like I said, it's heavy. It pulls him backwards. So you have to lean him forwards a little too much most of the time. It's just not good. And it's even worse when you compare it to Superman. And he got a wired cape, albeit a flawed wired cape, but it's cloth. And it mostly looks really good. For some reason, they didn't give Vader that same treatment, and it just keeps Vader from being a perfect Vader figure. These come off quite easily. All you got to do is pop the head off and the cape comes off. Voila. You could easily add your own, but I would prefer the figure to be, usable right out of the package. So that's the big downer of this figure. Cape aside, the rest of the figure does look amazing. The head is a lot narrower and sleeker than the Black Series one, and if you take the top of the helmet off, there's actually detail underneath, which I was not expecting. There's a little bit of silver print on the face. The chest looks fantastic. Lots of print work going on, as well as lots of molded detail. Keep in mind, this is the Empire Strikes Back version, so he doesn't have as much cloth as the New Hope version. The shoulders look really good. The molding for the cloth sections also looks fantastic. It's a bit softer than the armor molding, which is really good in my opinion. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints with how he looks. Like I said, I don't even really have any complaints with how the cloth, or the plastic capes look. It's mostly in function that I really don't like it. But yeah, in terms of just the style and look of this Vader, the proportions, I think he's really good. At first glance, you might think this is an import figure, except for the fact that he's got that cape. So let's talk articulation. And right off the bat, he wins out over the Black Series one in having actual head movement. He can't look down all that much, but he can certainly look up. You can tilt side to side a little bit. You can get a full rotation. It's a little sticky, but yeah, that's better than the Black Series one. The shoulder has a hinge upward, so you can get the arm all the way out to straight. There is a ball joint in there and a little bit of a butterfly joint. Not a ton, but enough. You've got a bicep swivel. It's a little stiff. You've got a double jointed arm that gets a bit past 90. The wrist is a ball joint, but the ball joint mostly just gives you the rotation, and then the hinge in the joint gives you the forward and back. So you can kind of reposition that to get basically all the movement you would want. You get forward, backward, and then you actually have this lifting up mechanism. So pop it down, pop it up, and that gives you the full movement and bend. Obviously, he's not getting a Spider-Man level bend, but it is something. With that click down, it's just a little bit. You get not really much side to side there, but you do get a rotation. And then for the legs, you get forward, and then you can drop it way down, and you can get a kick all the way up to there. And then you have a double jointed knee, but unlike the Stormtrooper, which I'll talk about later, this joint comes out really easily. And it's a bit frustrating. So that's the best you can get in terms of a bend. Not horrible, but not the best. I guess, I could ask for more. But yeah, for some reason, these particular parts, the clutch power in them just didn't quite make it. And it's very easy to pop the leg apart. For the foot, we have backward to there, forward to there. We have a bit of side to side. Honestly, we can get quite a bit of side to side if we finagle it. So that's pretty good. And then a toe hinge. I hate the toe hinge. I don't like toe hinges ever. I think they look bad and they rarely ever actually contribute to the figure. And in Vader's case, with how heavy the cape is, he definitely does not need this toe hinge. I will probably be gluing it. I glued Superman's, I will be gluing Vader's. And oh yeah, there is a thigh swivel as well. And obviously out to the back is going to be very limited by the cloak bit. Overall though, you can get quite a few poses, and I would venture a guess that you can probably get a bit more range overall than the Black Series Vader. I've messed around with the Black Series Vader. He doesn't have basically anything in terms of the chest, and the head at best can just look from side to side. He's also only got single jointed arms, which, you know, we still are comparable here. But yeah, overall, I think the Blokees one wins out in terms of articulation, and he's got the swappable hands, which makes the articulation even more useful because you can get way more poses. The Stormtrooper has less in terms of accessories, but I think he's still got everything he needs. So of course he's got a blaster, and this blaster is molded into the hand like Vader's saber is molded into his hand. And I think it works even better for this guy because they got the blaster size actually screen accurate. The Black Series blasters are actually oversized. I thought this was too small at first, and then I looked up reference photos and it's like, oh wait, no, this is actually correct if you're going for screen accuracy. And there's a more complete gripping pose on here because the gun doesn't come out. The downside is the gun doesn't come out, so you can't just have a gun to use on other figures. So it's a trade-off, and I don't think it's a really overly good or overly bad trade-off. It just is a trade-off. You also get two open, more relaxed hands. This is very useful for all kinds of poses, and it's also useful for gripping the blaster. You get a pair of fists, great. And then you have a go kill that guy pointing hand. And that's all you got for accessories, and I think that's fine. I don't really know what else he could need. In terms of details and proportions, I absolutely love this dude. Like, I do. I think it's so well done. The armor is all so sharp. We've got a little bit of print on the midsection. The belt looks great. The codpiece has some nice detail. The knees, again, that's where I think this figure really fails. I think Blokees could have done way better. The armor bit here sticks out a bit much. And then, yeah, it's just those knees just don't look good. They really don't look good. I can overlook it because I like the rest of the figure, but I will say I want to see them do better with that. I think they can. They really can. But for some reason they didn't here. And yeah, that just looks awkward. Not great. The feet are pretty nice. They do have a toe hinge. We'll talk about that in a second. Around the back, we've got, of course, the thermal detonator. Nice detail there. We've got the detail on the lower arms, on the back. And then the helmet. Oh, the helmet is so perfect. The helmet is everything I want out of a Stormtrooper helmet. It's got some print. It's got color separated eyes. And the top band thing is color separated, so no crooked print there. And then we've got some gray peeking out the back. And the undersuit, for the most part, has some detail too. So like the neck, we actually get the little segmented neck bit, which is really cool. And then there's a little bit of like cloth detailing under there as well. So looks-wise, the knees are the big downer. The rest of it I absolutely love. What's he got in terms of articulation though? So for the head, he can look up. That's good. He can look down. He's got a bit of a side to side, so you can get some like quizzical looking poses. You can get a full 360. The arm, like I showed earlier, it's got that hinge there, so you can get it out. Good grief, you can get way out there. And when you put it back, look at this. Wow, that's not something the Hasbro one can do. He's also got a bit of a drop down, and he's got a bit of a butterfly joint, so there's plenty of movement there. He is an actual bicep swivel. That's something that the Black Series one does not have. The Black Series one has an elbow swivel. So I think this looks better because there's actually shifting underneath the armor going on. So, you know, this armor piece and this armor piece move independently. For the arm, we have slightly over 90. And then we got the same type of joint as on Vader. So it's like a hinge and a ball joint both. So you get the full rotation and the hinging. That's really cool. He's got backwards to about there, forwards to about there. But then you can pull it up and get even more. So that's pretty good. And he's got rocking all around. Obviously, this will start to get gappy if you're not careful. I will say the ball joint on the lower one is quite loose and needs some tightening. And then for the legs and waist area, like I showed earlier, we do have a hinge here. This is a clip, so if you're not careful, you can pop this off, but that gets out of the way for the leg. You can get up to about there, but then you can drop down and get up to there. Fantastic. Love to see it. He's got a thigh swivel as well. The knee bend is a little over 90, which is great. And then we have backwards and forwards and plenty of tilt. And then the toe hinge. The toe hinges are actually kind of tight, so I probably won't glue these ones, but I don't like them. I still think they're useless. So in terms of articulation, I do think for the most part he wins over the Black Series one because he's got more movement axes for the hands, more movement, or I guess I should say more accurate movement for the arms, more movement for the shoulders, more movement for the hips, and a more solid leg bend. So I'm just more pleased with this guy overall. He feels more fun to pose. He's also lighter, which means it's a little easier to get him standing up in different balanced positions. So there you have it. That is the champion class Darth Vader and Stormtroopers from Empire Strikes Back. I am very pleased with the Stormtrooper. I think, like I said, the knees are the biggest flaw, and I think Blokees really should fix that for the next Trooper release, whatever that is. And some of the loose joints, obviously, I'm like, eh. But it's a model kit, which means you can take it apart and tighten up those joints way easier. Vader, the big disappointment is the cape. That cape really just makes him way less fun to pose, honestly. Like, even getting him posed how I have him right here was a pain, and he's leaning way forward because the cape wants to pull him back. Now, you can balance him using the cape because it's hard, but that's not really a helpful thing. Like, I don't want the cape doing that. I want the cape to be a cape. The Stormtrooper is extremely army buildable. Like, buying a bunch of Stormtroopers to go with Vader, perfect. I'd love to pick up even more in the future and probably weather some up, maybe make some remnant Stormtroopers, maybe do a shock Stormtrooper. There's a lot you can do, and again, because it's a model kit, taking it apart to paint it is a lot easier. So at the end of the day, I think these are fantastic first releases for the Champion class Star Wars line. I'm very excited to see what Blokees does next. I know for a lot of people, it's going to be frustrating that these don't scale exactly to Black Series or Marvel Legends. And I understand that, but it seems like Blokees is really trying to do their own thing here, especially because they've fine-tuned the scaling within the Champion class line with the small, medium, large thing. So it's kind of a, well, if you want to get Blokees, you probably should just gear up to have your Blokees be separate from your Black Series. That's how I see it. And again, because I'm not a huge fan of the Black Series Stormtroopers, I'm okay with doing that. So we'll see how things go in the future. I know they have a Mando and a Bo-Katan revealed, the prototypes anyway. I know they've got a Luke and Han in Stormtrooper disguises coming. So I think the future is very bright for Blokees Star Wars. And I really, really, really want a plain clone trooper classic class, or sorry, champion class, because imagine the customizing possibilities with a figure like that. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.